Good.
All right, welcome back to the Utah CTO Show. This is Brett. I'm here with Chris.
Hey guys.
And today we are here with Darren Balls, who is he's a software engineer at Nu Skin, former CTO at Taxbot, and he's also a board member at the Utah Oracle Users Group. Welcome, Darren.
Thank you.
Yeah,
nice to be here.
Yeah, welcome. I've actually met you once before. I'm going to put you on the spot here. We actually met at there's a software architecture meetup a few months ago.
Okay, yeah.
Up in Sandy, so yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit of your background, where you're from, what you do, like how you got into tech.
All right. I grew up in Detroit. My father was a development engineer for Ford, and so I would, on Saturdays when he'd go in, I'd go in and help as they started to computerize the engines, and it was really the start of machine learning back then. They started to meet the emission standards, computerize the engines, and I'd go in with my father and help him burn the strategy that would go in and control the fuel injectors, and at first it was carburetors and that sort of thing, and go through, and I had access to VAX manuals and in there, and that was great because that was back in the day when I would go home and it would just be a TI 99 4A. You know, I bet on the wrong machine. I thought, it was an expansion, I could do it a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
But no, but just like a lot of tech, not always the best design wins.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome that you had that experience growing up.
Yeah.
And how did that sort of, is that what led you to get into build a career around it?
So that led me to taking courses in programming in high school. So I learned Fortran, COBOL, and RPG when I was in high school.
Wow.
On an IBM System 34.
So was this just kind of off on your own, or did you have a teacher?
Yeah, there was an instructor there.
Wow.
And so I to do that I chose to do release time because it was more popular than they had, and so I'd go to school in the morning for a couple hours and then head home, and then I'd go back from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night so that we try to maximize the rental of the computer back then, because it's kind of almost gone full circle now. Back then people were our school system would do the timeshares and that sort of thing to get computing time to print report cards and all those other things, and now we're back to kind of time sharing, but your compute's now called the cloud.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So straight from high school, did you launch into college? Because you got your degree at Brigham Young University.
Yes, I did. I took time out and I started off first at Oakland Community College. Not everybody has, the typical, have to be this brainiac from high school and have to get into computing. That shouldn't be a barrier. Anybody that likes it, enjoys it, has that drive,
Absolutely.
You'll be able to go ahead and do that. And so for me to get in, I didn't have the ACT score to get into Brigham Young, so I went to community college, went a year there, and then ended up at Brigham Young University. Took a hiatus to go on a mission, and took some time to save up some money, and I bought my PC. And then I was going to go in, and now I had the tools I needed to do well and get my computer science degree.
That's good. That's really neat. And so, a lot of people, you say you have to have kind of this side gig or things that you're doing while you're either while you're working or while you're going to school. Did you have things like that while you were going to school that you were working on?
Mostly for me, because it took all my effort to just go through and get through class. So I didn't have anything on the side.
Interesting.
But that was back when a PC was running $5,000-$6,000.
Yeah.
So the luxury to be able to do things. I was spoiled that I didn't have to go to computer lab.
Makes sense.
What were some of your favorite things that you worked on at that time when you were kind of going through computer science and working through those things?
I enjoyed just about anything. I enjoyed some of the math behind it, not the calculus, but when you got into the discrete math, That I really enjoyed, found that the logic behind it that worked out real well. I found that because I started to program back when you'd have to do a job and set it up to compile, and then you go to the break machine and get a soda and a candy bar and have it, and then come back and you get your printout of your compile. I learned to kind of compute in my head so that I could fix the bugs just in reading.
Yeah.
And that was very helpful.
So how has tech evolved for you in your career, given that you had this opportunity to early on work in those early days of machine learning with your dad and Ford, right? Like how since you graduated and got into a professional career, how has it changed, and has it been for the better?
So it's changed because the iterative, the cycle. It used to be that I could keep track of hardware, how it progressed, and some of the languages that are out there. With JavaScript and the frameworks and everything else, you get these booms that are happening so quickly, the iteration, that you have to now pick a focus and actually go in. In the earlier days, you could kind of, if you kept track, you could stay on top of things if you didn't have many other hobbies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting too. Sometimes you see some of this stuff come back. Like right now, we're talking about Python being one of the more popular programming languages, and I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Not a question there, just a comment.
No, that's what kind of brought me to Taxbot was the Python. I was in between, and I was looking for my next job, and I had started auditing a course from Stanford on machine learning and blockchains, and was really starting to like kind of the direction that was happening. And so I'm like, okay, I'll go to this startup, and it was quite a drive. It was a little bit of a sacrifice. I live in the south end of Utah County, and I was commuting all the way to Bountiful.
Oh wow!
To do that, but that gave me that opportunity because I had that to be able to be at a small shop. So then you can have more than one role, wear many hats.
Yeah, well, it seems like you started out as like IT director and then moved into to be the CTO. Is there a story there?
Yeah, so I got there within about 3 months. They had hired prior to me being there, they had hired a programmer. They started out as a lean startup. With about 100,000 of seed money. They didn't have, and you had business people that then would contract work out and go through and launch their mobile app. And they got to the point where they could hire and bring a programmer in. And so that programmer had gone, and he came back, and after he'd gone to the Python conference there in Cleveland, I think is where it's at, and said, I'm going off to Pluralsight and do machine learning full time, and so not just having to do so many hats, just focus on one thing. He wanted to get into machine learning, and so he went off and did that, and then all of a sudden I was still trying to learn the system, and we had to have this powwow, and I sat down with him, and he was a little panicked because I'd only been there a little bit. He didn't want me to go, and so we kind of had a, I don't know, come to Jesus moment where we just sat down and said, what do we want? And he goes, I could see someday, and they'd added a lot of features, but it wasn't really stable. Yeah. Taxbot is great for anybody that's self-employed. Mm-hmm. They help you track your deductions and that sort of thing. And there were some timings that the systems weren't always up all the time. And so we did some things, re-architected. He came in, he says, I want you to be the CTO. And I'm like, well, I don't want a title just for a title.
Yeah.
I need to earn it. So let's call me a director, and then go through, and if I can get things turned around, then let's go. And so about the time that the fires were going on in Elk Ridge, I was evacuated, and so it gave me a perfect time I didn't really have a home to go to. And so our contract programming was up in Logan, and so I spent some time up there, stayed in the hotel there, and we hit it hard and redid the architecture.
Sure.
And added some, elasticity to what we had in the cloud there with AWS.
That's awesome. So yeah, it's nice to get like some time to just really focus on the architecture and whatnot. What advantages did that give you? What kind of focus?
So there was a book I read a while back that was called Deep Work.
Okay.
And it talks about, people that can go in and focus and that are really, really good at that. And I can't remember the name of the scientist, but, he studied and found out that he had like this own, place that he'd go off in the woods and could focus. But at the end, he found, no more than about 4 hours of really deep focus, no distractions, anything else, that he could get more done in that same amount of time, and about just being efficient at what you're doing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting because I think Bill Gates also kind of used that method with early Microsoft to just go in and focus on problems and just get rid of all the extra cruft from life and just focus. It's very
that was very helpful. And then also what was it, about 2 years prior to showing up at Taxbot, I started. Was leading a team of about 30 people, and we're doing an implementation of Oracle EBS. And we'd gone to the spring training, and there was a thing, do you want to volunteer? And I'd started to go into meetups and was finding, I loved the interaction of meeting with different people. Every person I've ever met, whether they've been in the industry a short amount of time or a longer period of time, I've always walked away having learned something from them. Either they asked me a question I hadn't thought of, and it caused me to think and explain things a different way, but it helped me. And so by having that opportunity to go ahead and volunteer, that's when the interaction that you need to be able to speak to a board and some of those things. And it was my first chance to look at Robert's rules and some of those things to understand what it meant to talk to the board and some of those things. And that then introduced me my opportunity to get at that level and understand and get familiar with what it's like. So volunteering helps. You don't have to get paid to learn.
You've mentioned a few really good points that would love to elaborate even more on. We probably don't have as much time as I'd like to do so, but that's almost always the case on these shows. But one of the themes that you had mentioned, right, was multiple times having to commute a long ways for your job. And I think it's easy to underestimate how important it is for you to find the thing that you need to learn and then go after that thing, no matter where it is or how you can get it. I think it's super important to be able to go out and do that.
Yeah, you have to find your passion.
You
Once
do.
you found your passion, then it drives you. It didn't seem like I was working when I was at Taxbot. There's times I'd come home with a problem, and I'd go downstairs, get in my office, and the next thing I know, my alarm's going off, telling me I'm supposed to wake up, and I hadn't gone to bed. But I was just loving it because there were these problems that I needed, and I didn't have, the schooling that some of the MBAs that have come in and gone that route. Not that that's not an appropriate route. It's just I did it kind of a little different.
Sure.
I think too that finding the right thing that you're passionate about, going after it. There are a lot of people, and sometimes the companies here in Utah facilitate this a little bit, where it's sort of a little bit of an entitlement, like, oh, I'm an engineer, so that means I should get the ping pong table, the pool table. We should definitely have food everywhere, lots of cereal, Coke machines, right? And if your company doesn't have that, or I have to commute a long way, or it makes it hard for me, then I don't necessarily want to work for your company. And that attitude is also very difficult. And I don't know if I really don't think it's the right way to grow your career. Like, if ultimately you think that at some point in your career you want to lead a team, or you want to be a CTO, or you want to get to that level of ability to manage an organization, you have to grind. You have to put in the work. You have to find that passion and then be in the weeds and actually do it. Otherwise, I don't know how you get it.
You don't. You have to find it some way. I mean, there were earlier on in my career where, instead of driving north, I was driving south. I spent some time as the director of IT for Moroni Feed. And so there it was a little different. But that was when I first learned how to engage with people and talk. And I had techs that would work in the factory floor and keep our computing equipment up and our implementation of J.D. Edwards, and to find the bugs that still existed and troubleshoot those. And that was the first presentation into problems.
So for somebody that's just getting into tech, that maybe has this passion and drive to want to eventually lead teams, like what sort of advice would you give them as they're just getting into technology and starting to sort of build their career and sort of see that career path in front of them?
I think it'd be good to find somebody, go to a meetup, find somebody that's doing what you like to do, take them to lunch, get to know them. I spent a lot of times going to the CTO breakfast, and that's where I started to find that same group of people. There were people there that were CTOs. I wasn't a CTO yet. I'd gone to that group off and on, but from about 2009 to it wasn't until 2017.
Yes.
2018 that I actually had the title of CTO.
Yeah, that's some great advice, to find a mentor or somebody that you either admire or does the same thing you want to do, and get to know them. I mean, they can provide a lot of good info. So, we appreciate you very much, Darren, being here on the show with us today. This is it's been a pleasure getting to know you and kind of hear your story. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm glad I'm able to. I think anybody out there should go and be part of our community. We just had the Big Mountain Data, and that was the last closing keynote, was be part of the community.
Yeah.
Get to know that, because in tech, 1 out of 10 startups actually succeed. So you're going to find yourself going to different places, and it's the people those contacts, the network, that's important.
Yeah, along those same lines, we usually give everybody a chance to plug or promote something that they're interested in. I noticed that you were the board member on the Oracle users group. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about that and how we can contact you.
So it's a nonprofit that we have there, that we go through and help people. The entry into some of these enterprise systems is kind of high, but we actually have scholarships for those that are wanting to learn, that are in school, to come to our training, to go through and do that. Even with women in scholarship, we have a women's scholarship that we also give out for that, and it's like $50 to $100. And so sometimes you have to put a little skin in the game.
Sure.
But it was well worth it.
Okay. Is there a way we can contact the Oracle user group?
Yeah, so you can just go on to our website at utoug.org, and you can go in and be a member. If you're unemployed, your membership is free, and will help you get the skills you'll need to find that employment.
That's very cool.
Thank you, Darren. Thanks for joining us. And for our listeners, if you feel like we've given a 5-star
Interview performance.
Yeah,
we're doing a good job.
leave us 5 stars. Listen to us on we're on most of the social media platforms and on the most podcast platforms. So thank you.
Yep. Thanks for being here.